Kia ora, I'm Paula Morris. I've adapted something for you from my long-form essay on coming home that was published by Bridget Williams Books in 2015. I just returned to New Zealand to live after spending more or less 30 years away from home. Since that time, I've also done quite a lot of research into the life and work of Robin Hyde. Haru Sameshima, the photographer, and I published a book last year with Massey University Press called Shining Land, Looking for Robin Hyde, that explored some of the places that were important to her in New Zealand. And we are going to work on a sequel, in fact, chronicling her final fateful trip away, where she went to China and spent quite a lot of time on the front line of the war with Japan and then to the UK. So this is my version of On Coming Home. I used to be afraid that I would never come home. Like the hapless Tony Last in Evelyn Waugh's novel, A Handful of Dust, I imagined myself stranded somewhere, unable to find a way out. Tony Last desperately wanted to return to England, but he was trapped deep in a South American jungle, condemned to read Dickens aloud to his madman captor with a gloomy foreboding of permanent exile. This fear of being stranded is not entirely irrational. Dying far from home is a familiar story for New Zealand writers. Our most famous emigre, Catherine Mansfield, died from TB in 1923 in a cold first-floor bedroom of an old French monastery. In August 1939, Robin Hyde died in her cheap London attic. She was desperate about money, about her future, the impending war in Europe. She was suffering, I believe, from PTSD after witnessing the front line with the Japanese invasion of China. She turned on the gas and overdosed on Benzedrine. In April 1945, John Mulgan, our war hero, author of Man Alone, he was back in Cairo after leaving Greece, his favorite place, the place he loved best. In a hotel he sat drinking whiskey and typing letters, lying to his commanding officer that he had throat cancer before killing himself with morphine. And not New Zealanders either, right? The tombs of artists and writers are dotted around the world, revealing the places they made their last hopeless stands. I visited some of their graves, Anne Bronte in Scarborough, Keats in Rome, Oscar Wilde in Paris. Better, I thought, to be Pablo Neruda, choosing to abandon the peace of Normandy for the political upheaval of Chile. That is, to go home rather than to just disappear in another lonely place. But sometimes restless moving from place to place gives the illusion of progress. In Travels with Herodotus, the late journalist Ryszard Kapuscinski describes the great Greek historian as a homeless traveler, incapable of stopping at one event or one country. The one certainty, he wrote, is that they would like to be back on the road, going somewhere, to be on their way again. That is the dream. Now, for me, across so many years of absence, this dream, I think, came to overshadow the fear. However much I worried I'd never make it home, the dream of moving on was too potent. And it was another fear anyway I harbored, the fear of the end of the road. The longest I've ever lived in one house in my adult life is 6 years in New Orleans. It was an entrancing city and an exasperating one. I was eager to move there and eager to leave. I miss it terribly, but I doubt that I'll ever live there again. So when I'm asked things like, where would you like to live? Where are you going to settle down? Is this the place you plan to retire? I don't know the answers. Everywhere and nowhere, that's where I'd like to live. Here and there, somewhere else perhaps, although now in this era of COVID, that seems romantic and impossible. Over the years I was away, I came home many times, so often before the move back in 2015 that I felt more of a commuter rather than an expatriate, to borrow James Baldwin's phrase. But coming home a lot when your real life is elsewhere is quite different from coming home with its commitments and expectations, its compromises. Maybe that's why I squirm when returning home is presented as the end of the road. To be on their way again, that is the dream. But here I am now, wide awake and home.